Influencer marketing is absolutely amazing, especially if you get it right. With influencer marketing, you have the ability to get your products and services in front of the right people for a fraction of what it would typically cost you to do so with more conventional marketing techniques. But though influencer marketing is amazing, it does have its problems. Influencer marketing as it is now is relatively new, with the rise of social influencers on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, etc. This is a relatively new way of marketing, and as with most things that are new, it does have a lot of challenges. But despite these challenges, I still continue to use influencer marketing for the past 4 to 5 years because it pays great dividends. But in this video, what I want to do for you is to share with you some of the problems that you will likely face when you're working with influencers. And I'm going to be sharing with you at the end of this video as well exactly how to navigate these problems to ensure that you get the most bang for your buck and that you have a very good time working with influencers. So if you're interested in learning exactly what these are and how to navigate, make sure you watch this entire video. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, I've been working directly with influencers for about 4 to 5 years now. And by influencers, I'm referring specifically to micro-influencers. And if you don't know what micro-influencers are, these are typically those guys on social media with less than 100,000 followers. So I've worked directly with influencers from my own city. I've worked with influencers from Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And the results have been a mixed bag. So 50% of those campaigns may have been successful, and I would say about 50% of those campaigns were failures. And by failure, I mean I didn't get any direct sales from those campaigns. Some people may classify these as wins as well, but for me, I classify those as failures. And even though 50% of my campaigns are failures, the reason why I continue to work with influencers is because they are severely underpriced. So what you can typically get for spending say $100 on paid advertising on Facebook, Instagram, or even YouTube is nothing compared to what you can get when you spend $100 with the right influencer on Instagram or YouTube. And I've created a video before where I shared with you exactly my strategy for using influencers in the right way. And if you have not yet seen that video, I highly recommend you watch that video. I've also created a video to show you exactly how I get to work with influencers without having to pay money, but I get them to actually promote my products in exchange for products. So that's another great strategy for working with influencers. So influencer marketing, as I mentioned earlier as well, is absolutely amazing. And if you have not yet used influencer marketing as a part of your marketing strategy, I highly recommend you do so. But with that said, let's dive directly into the 3 biggest problems that you will face when you start working with influencers. And the first problem that you will likely face when you start working with influencers is that you'll find most of these influencers to be quite unprofessional. And let me explain exactly what I mean by that. So typically, whenever we categorize someone as being unprofessional, it could be for one reason, as well as it could be for a number of different reasons. In the case of influencers, it's typically about one reason. This reason is such a big reason that we can actually use it to generalize and categorize most influencers as being unprofessional. And that reason is their poor communication skills. So what you tend to find when you're working with influencers is that they don't communicate effectively. And if you're someone who is impatient, you may want to give up on your initial engagements with these influencers, but I implore you to press on, to press through, and to continue your negotiations with these influencers despite their poor communication skills. Because once you get past that initial barrier, that initial communication barrier, you can actually have fruitful, beneficial relationships with these influencers. But that is something that you have to be mindful of. They have really poor communication skills. For example, in previous interactions with influencers from Instagram, where I've opened up discussion trying to negotiate particular deals with these influencers, I've come across 3 main communications issues that most people would find to be deal breakers, and because of these issues would not continue to pursue these influencers. And I'm just gonna lay these 3 main communications issues out for you, so you know exactly what you can expect when you're trying to find good influencers to work with. So the first communication issue that I've come across, and that you will come across when you're just starting out working with influencers, is that most of these influencers will take a very long time to get back to your messages, especially if you're trying to DM these influencers. And in some cases, you may not even hear from these influencers. So that is something that you should expect when you're trying to work with influencers. They may take a very long time to get back to you, and in some cases may not even get back to you. But regardless, you should be patient, or you can follow up with these influencers at a certain point in time after your initial message to these influencers. The second communication issue that you'll face is that the tone in which most of these influencers may respond to you in may not be very inviting, and this can be a big turnoff for a lot of people. But I highly recommend, once again, and I do implore you to continue, because most of these influencers may not be very good at English, they may not be very good at communication, but they may be able to help you to grow your business. So this is something that you may want to push through as well. And the third issue is that you will find influencers asking for payment upfront even before you actually get to the meat of the matter to discuss exactly what you want them to promote for you, or the type of business deal that you want to get into with them. So this is something that you have to be mindful as well. For some people, especially professionals, they may find this as a big turnoff, but you have to understand that there are also a lot of people who try to engage with these influencers who are big time wasters. So this is a defense mechanism, I think, that these influencers have developed to help them to navigate and to not waste their own time when trying to work with potential business owners. Okay, so the second biggest problem that I've had to deal with when working with influencers, and that you may have to deal with for your brand as well, is unreliability. For me personally, this is one of my biggest gripes of working with influencers, and I've worked with quite a number of different unreliable influencers before, but note that in some cases I've actually had really good results when everything actually came together. But influencers are quite unreliable, I've found. So in the past, I've worked with a particular influencer from my city. I met this influencer via Instagram, and we entered into a certain partnership. We agreed to do a photo shoot on a particular day so that we could actually have some content to promote a particular event that was happening on that specific weekend. However, that influencer did not show up on that particular day when that photo shoot was supposed to be done. Mind you, this influencer is someone that I spoke to up to the night before that particular photo shoot, and on the day of the event, on the day of that photo shoot, he was nowhere to be found. The day after the photo shoot, he actually messaged me to say that, hey, his phone got damaged and he was not able to actually get in contact with me. We both knew that this was a lie, but this is one of the things that you'll have to deal with when you're trying to find influencers and when you're dealing with influencers for your brand. Unreliability. So this is something that you have to be aware of as well, and you have to understand how to navigate and mitigate against this unreliability. So one of the things that I do know when working with influencers is that I always have contingencies in mind. So when you're working with influencers, you have to have a contingency plan in mind. Okay, so the third major problem that I've had to deal with when working with influencers for my brand, and one that you will most definitely have to deal with for your brand as well, is that once you start working with higher quality influencers, you will find them to be totally uncompromising. And let me explain exactly what I mean by uncompromising. So in the past, what I've tried to do when I try to work with better quality influencers is I've made the mistake of trying to tell them exactly how to work with my product. I've tried to tell them how to position my product, what type of content to create, what to say, or what to do with my product. However, what I've found is that when I try to do this with good quality influencers, I tend to not hear from these influencers again. So this is based on trial and error, but now you get to benefit from some of the mistakes I've made. So good quality influencers want creative freedom. So you have to give them creative freedom. You have to give them the product and allow them to do what they want to do with that product. So this is something that may be extremely difficult for you, especially if you understand your product, especially if you understand your niche. But this is something that is absolutely necessary if you want to work with high quality influencers. They understand their audience, you understand your product. But if you want to work with good quality influencers, allow them creative freedom to do what they want to do. A lot of people may find this as a big problem. Initially, I found it as a big problem, but I eventually got over that barrier. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 3 biggest problems that you'll have to deal with when you start working with influencers in your business. So just to recap, you tend to find that influencers are quite unprofessional, especially in the way they communicate. They tend to be very unreliable and they're very much uncompromising. So as a business owner, if you're trying to get to work with influencers, you have to learn how to be patient, you have to learn how to be strategic, and you also have to learn how to be flexible. Okay, so I really do hope you found a lot of value in this video. If you did, please drop a like on this video. If you have any questions, let me hear them in the comments. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please get subscribed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.